All righty.
Hit them with the sweet sounds of the purge tones.
Okay. Now.
Whoops, I did not mean to do that. There we go.
All
You
right.
get introductory music? No,
I do. I
Right.
have some.
I felt
I'm
like
gonna let him do it.
I felt like the music was about to come on, and I was just about to be
that's
like,
what I thought. I was
It
like,
was, but I kind of like blew it, so it's not gonna probably work. Let me just
we
make
get
sure that.
what we get.
Yeah. Yep, I blew it.
He's like, you're lucky. You got video.
Yep,
okay. So he
right,
said, you know what? You're asking a lot.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
We're having too much fun, Charlie Murphy. I just want to make sure I'm live. There we go. Okay, cool. I just want to make
the
sure
funny
live.
thing is, my introduction is so noisy and chaotic intentionally. So, like, it would have fucked up the whole podcast right before it even started.
We don't need
Alrighty.
Yeah, we don't
Okay.
need all that extra stuff.
We are live.
Hey.
All right. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Brian Redman. This is the Relationship Rehab, and we have a very special show for you guys today. Today, I have a fellow blogger, fellow content creator by the name of Jason Blanks, and he has his own podcast, which is called HisStory Making History. I am literally going to turn it over to him and let the platform be his to moderate and use unless things go way left. But I don't believe they will. And we are going to have a discussion. He wanted to include me in this panel discussion, so I definitely feel honored to be able to be here and to be able to meet some new people and to have a discussion. Y'all know that's one of the things I'm always about. So we have a great show for you guys today. So please, as you come in, click the like, click the share button. This was kind of like impromptu on my end, so I didn't get to really send it out like I normally do, but it's still going to be great either way. So without further ado, HisStory Williams, take it away, sir.
That's it. That's what I wanted, baby. I'll put the government out there, man. I'll put the government out there. I worked hard for that HisStory Williams.
Oh, that was powerful.
Say it with your chest.
Oh my God.
he made all of this feel special. Oh man,
that's what I do.
So, that's it. So, all right, everybody, welcome to the Making History Making podcast panel. So, I'm planning on doing this as a monthly talk, essentially. So, if you guys are in the West Michigan area, you have people like Bryce Huffman, who came up with the Same Different podcast with Michigan Radio. You have several other people who are doing like TED Talks and stuff like that. GVSU is hosting TED Talks now. And it's really about understanding identity. And one of the things that I noticed that we as people, not only of color, but also just people in general, when we get behind a keyboard or when we get behind a microphone, we talk. I talk ourselves off. But now is it just a chance to listen and get at least a narrative from different colors of blackness. As a person who's from New Orleans, Louisiana, we have this thing called the Essence Festival, which they have several other places that have Essence Festival, but the largest one is in New Orleans. And you have so many layers of blackness and brownness there. You have your like exotic black that you want to call it, maybe like the Wakanda people, I guess you would say. But then you also have like the rough and rugged black people as well. You have different layers. And this is my protest. And the reason why it's my protest is because of the fact that I'm not doing a Blackout Tuesday, because of the fact that everybody know the color black. You got a black hat on right now, AJ. You know what I mean? Headphones are black. All we know black. We know black. Obviously, you don't need to learn the shit that you learned in kindergarten or 2 or 3 years old.
I'm gonna be
what
right
you
back.
need to know is where blackness is. And so I am trying to actually have this talk where we understand multi-layers of what the fuck black people is and Afro Latino people is, black and brown people is. So let's fucking learn that today. So my first peer person that I'm going to be introducing to you guys is Tyronza Hicks. Now, this man here is fantastic because he has a Ty Hicks. Got it. So the cool thing about him is the fact that he has a podcast called the Opinionated Brother Podcast. He also has Devontae's World. He has his own company called THC, which is not what you think it is. It was designed to be his initials, but this man is now Ty Hicks MS. So that means that he has his master's in communications, and he literally studied doing digital media and the impressions of digital media inside of the communication world. Next, we also have what the fuck, Brian. Okay, Brian Redman. You obviously know him. He
had to tend to my daughter.
That's okay.
Hey, that's all right. That's right. That's all right.
I was just reading the way that the paper was showing it up. The next person is, of course, Brian Redman as well. You guys already know him. And the last and final person was, we laughed and joke about this, but Adrian Johnson. I found her by accident. This originally was designed to be several black males, but I had a person who recommended me to actually include a female as well, which I'm glad I did. Glad I did. And I tried to look for more people outside of that. Unfortunately, it was not within our reach, which still going to constantly do this. This person is not only an activist, I guess you would call them a keyboard warrior in some ways, but also they are a fucking entrepreneur, which we don't like celebrate as much, is like black and brown minority fucking entrepreneurs. This person
You feel stuck on that it's all dudes. See, this is messing his head up.
I know. Yeah, and you're dressed like a champion.
Like grasping, like, hey.
Get him, AJ.
The lady is in the house.
Let him know, Queen.
That's okay. So this person, see, I'm gonna put the introduction just for the hell of it now. You better take this pass. This person, like I said, again, activist, entrepreneur, owner of the Rebellious Creative Web Design Company, has been outspoken speaker for not only Blackness but also the LGBTQIA community. Recently, you posted up about the transgender medical care actually being taken away by Trump as well. You've been just doing a lot of stuff to grace us. So I wanted to have you inside of this as well. And let's just get started with actually talk about a couple of the biggest things that's been going on in our community. So first off, Ty, like, what would you say has been going on with your projects, and what have you personally been seeing going on for the past few months?
So for me, as a podcaster, podcast personality, entrepreneur, blog writer, all of these things, the thing that I have had to do the most is really shift, but not stop with everything. A lot of things have been ramping up even in the midst of chaos. It's kind of weird. Yesterday I was downtown in Grand Rapids, and that was the first time I really felt in Grand Rapids like peace, love, harmony within the city. For me personally, I've been there for 8 years, and that was the first time for me where I really felt like my creative ability was now reignited, or that fire was burning again. Because I was ready to leave, y'all. I ain't even gonna help you. I was ready to peace up out of here.
Go back to the east side of the state.
Peace up. Not even that. Like I've always felt like Grand Rapids was never the place for me because I'm so much bigger than here. You know what I'm saying? I'm so much bigger than what this place has to offer me. However, it is the connections and the networking and the relationships that I continue to build here that continue to keep me here. And just figuring out that, understanding that it's bigger than me, that nobody is really in my space doing what I'm doing, and that I'm curating for the next and fostering for the next. It's for me at such a young age, it's like, okay, I'm not thinking about me, I'm thinking about the next. So right now it's it's really been a moment of stillness, just trying to get things together. And just really nothing has changed. Everything has just moving faster. Everything has just been moving a lot more. I've been doing a lot more. So even when everybody's telling you to sit down, it's like I've just been keep going. So that's where I am right now.
Awesome. What about you, Miss AJ?
You
They
almost.
just did. They just did.
No, I said Miss AJ, but I didn't know if I didn't. So I was correcting my Miss or Mrs. That's what I was correcting.
Man.
It wasn't that. It wasn't that. I promise you. I was trying to put the layer of the Miss. Yeah.
Ring on your finger. He was.
I did. I put a. Well, no. All right. See, that's okay.
I'm gonna leave you alone because
that's the one thing people don't get. I Facebook stalk people, so I seen you had a couple of partners, so I was just questioning it. But that's all right, homie. All right, y'all go give me shit now. I get
it. From my eyes, I have, we've all just seen a lot of transitional instances going on, from the norm to all of a sudden, like, oh, you got to sit still. And I think, although the sitting still, people aren't used to that, they're always on the go, whatever. I feel like it's either have broken homes, it's made them come together, it's made you think about, okay, well, shoot, I'm in this career and now I can't do anything more past that. Like some careers where you can take it remotely, and some it's like, oh, shoot, I don't know what I'm gonna do. They're closed. I have no way of making money. Where some people, they're lucky to be in a position where they can still work remotely, which I do. So I've taken this to like, okay, well, how can I grow this? I haven't looked at it as a negative, impact where some have, and I can empathize with that because not everybody's in the great position to be able to think clear and like, okay, this is a time I can build a career or start my own business or think differently. This is a time to reshape yourself. If you are not fully happy with yourself or happy where you're at, you've had plenty of time to be like, okay, well, looks like we need to do some some reshaping here. You say, save the money you have, you don't have it to spend on anything. So invest in something. What can you do to progress yourself? That's that time I took. It's like thinking and okay, what can I do better when things start to open back up, and how can I make it viable and useful in any situation,
right.
But not everybody thinks like that. And then along with sitting still, you actually see what's going on around you. You can't ignore it. It's because when you're on the go, no one's knowing like what actually happened. It's in the news, but it's like a flash because our mindset is to go.
Right.
Okay, we saw that stops us for a minute and then you're done. But now we're in a place where we're just sitting completely still and like watching like something is wrong and we need to fix it. Mm-hmm. So, there's a positive within this, pandemic, inside of a pandemic of, what's going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And now, Brian, of course, you just recently did a move to Texas. So,
okay.
Just recently moved to Texas. So,
I was just in Houston in February. Sorry.
Okay, man. So, same question. Like, how have you been handling it? Like, what have you been doing for your growth, especially in your shows and also in your personal life as well?
This has been a real gut check for me, my family, just the wake up call that I've received since this whole thing has happened, because it's so shocking that I never thought that we would be here and the things that have been done would have ever been done. I would have never thought this. I would have never thought that we did the things that we did, and just the whole way that we reacted to what was going on with no type of, hey, well, let's ask this question or let's figure this out first. Let's look at this before we react. Just straight up
react.
House is on fire, everybody jump outside. And we all outside watching everything burn. That's pretty much what happened. He's sitting there watching it burn, and nobody even at once said, well, hell, did somebody at least call the fire department? It was literally like that. Like Paso 5, we outside, everybody standing out there. We ain't got on clothes or got a blanket around us, and we just sitting here watching it burn.
Oh my God.
And nobody said anything. So it was really shocking. I mean, even me, personally, I wasn't ready for what happened. And that was very disturbing to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it made me really reevaluate some things and say, well, hey man, if things happen like this again, are you going to be ready? And the most important question is, if it gets worse, will you be ready? And this definitely opened my eyes and made me really do some things differently to be prepared for not just something like this happening again, but also for the worst, if it does get worse.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really big freaking deal, because like we didn't think about like how this affected us. We were just coming off of, for example, like NBA All-Star Weekend. We was coming off of, like, if you were in New Orleans, Mardi Gras. You were coming off of like stuff that was considered like day by day normal celebrations and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, everybody was like, "Nope, fucking lockdown. You're done. You're done."
I mean, lockdown. Like,
it was like essentially Happy New Year, Happy Martin Luther King Day,
Yeah.
Kobe died, Mardi Gras, COVID lockdown.
Yeah.
We like, wow.
That was your last party.
Yeah.
It was
couldn't even let the Easter Bunny in.
Yeah.
Couldn't even
Easter was canceled. Church was canceled.
Easter was canceled, y'all. Nobody could bring out their 3-piece suit.
Yeah. No hats was worn out. The mothers, I know the mothers were so mad.
Listen, the mothers were sick. Do you hear me? I know they were. They couldn't bring out the apple and peach.
Yeah, that hat they bring out once a year, and they couldn't wear it. Oh man,
you know they got it in the
one service. One service
right there at the top.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now they just gotta blow it off, get the dust off.
Yeah. In that little round container that looks like a present container. Yeah.
Yeah,
we only
they gotta call their grandson over to come get it out the closet because it's so high up in the back they can't get it because they wouldn't dare hurt themselves trying to get that hat because they got to go to church to wear.
Come get my hat. I gotta
go. Yes, get the one in the gray box, baby. The gray box. That other one is for Christmas. I need the gray box for Easter.
Okay, get the black box then. Get the black box.
Yes, indeed.
Don't worry about those cockroaches there.
Yeah.
Like, you see the damn cockroaches under the actual box.
Oh my God.
Yes, indeed.
So, going back into we want to talk about. So this month, this panel, of course, is highlighting. I talked to AJ quickly. AJ, catch your breath. It's all right.
Okay.
just. So I talked to AJ over the phone, and this is one of the things that I explained to him was that, like, I'm not gonna. I realized how kind of like one-track minded it did sound. So originally I said that this was a tough year for Black men and Black fathers. This has really been a tough year. Of course, you had Kobe Bryant, who passed away, bringing his daughter Gianna. I talked about Chad Gaspar, who was a WWE wrestler. He died saving his son.
Yep.
That was unfortunate. Ty is a WWE fan, so he definitely would get that. Of course, you had George Floyd, Ahmed, who passed away. And I didn't realize, I think in the conversation, I didn't even talk about Breonna Taylor. I didn't talk about several other Black females and people who were part of that, the LGBTQ community who also passed as well. But this panel today is designed to just highlight specific questions that we all ask and we just kind of think in the back of our head, but we just kind of scared to answer. I'm gonna get back to you on that, Brian, because I know that you have your podcast and stuff like that. But the last few questions is designed for you specifically. So I want to start off with the first set of questions by saying, like, I'm gonna start with you, Adrian. What is the imagery of Blackness in the modern media? What is your specific imagery that you have?
Well, I had to really think through this because it's like with the media being almost in everybody's hands, with being able to live stream and show what's happening, and versus like the news media and what they catch and what they tell in their story, where there's flashes of what's happening. It's got to be quick. They got to, catch what they catch.
Yep.
But they're also going live too now. So, what the media does is it manipulates, it's, moving in some directions, it's able to influence people in how they view whatever it is they see.
Mhm.
Um, so it depends. Sometimes it like just depends on that each person and how they see a person. You see a person of color, what they've been surrounded by, what they've been taught, and how they receive it and push the news right back out like garbage out. It could be something like, oh no, they said that wrong. They shouldn't talk about people like this. They don't even know the full story, because that's usually, it's like, well, what's the context? What happened? Why are they treating this person this way? And so, in the media, you see the portray of like something bad happening. And, that is what gets the most attention, because people are on that. Yeah, it's good to see something good, but it gets the most ratings, it gets the most shares, it gets the most attention because it's striking, and they see somebody doing something that is to them criminal, and then you see it's a Black person doing that or whatever, and then it's just putting people in a category like, well, they all act like this then, without even knowing each individual person, because there are different layers, just like you said. People, are in different fields of work. They're in different things they do, sports wise, music wise, whatever. But for media, when you see that is what we see all the time. That's what they put out into the media. So then automatically categorize, they're all trouble.
Yes.
And that's where you spend so much time trying to explain yourself, like, no, that's not true. You can't just categorize people, because if that was the case, if you looked at every white person, it's like, oh, well, you're all KKK members, aren't you?
Hello.
You all act like that, and that's just not fair.
Right.
And so I feel I spend more time just breaking it down in how you need to just stop using the media as your learning tool as to what someone's history is or their background is or whatever. So that's, how, the media can be good and it can be bad in the sense of what's being shared and what's being said and how people are being portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Now, I want to make sure I add, I didn't say this earlier, if you guys also have a question for that person who's speaking, please definitely also ask that question. And there's also going for the viewers as well. If you got a question, I'll make sure I ask those questions at towards the end as well. So if you guys have anything that you want to ask that person as well, please make sure you ask your questions. Don't fail, because sometimes it seemed like Brian was kind of looked like he was processing, but also wanted to say something.
Nope, that's exactly what I was doing. I was just processing what you were saying.
Gotcha. No. So going into that, so as a person who was New Orleans, I went through Hurricane Katrina. I guess I too was feeling that you had a different imagery for specific groups compared to other people. So for example, they were talking about the protests. They was talking about those people were all these thugs were stealing, but yet still they would highlight Black people, but then they turn around and highlight or not highlight the white folks who were destroying stuff just as well. So I agree with you when it says that it seems like it was more tailored to what's going to get the most clickbait, what's going to get the most fuel to the fire. So now I'm going to twist this around to you, Ty. Is that I consider you more so like the more modern, like Black activists when it comes to like the way that you talk. So of course you will have the Black Lives Matter and groups that will be fall into that. So when you look at, for example, like these police killings, do you look at them as like the modern lynching, or do you think that this is not no different than what people were going through in the past?
Well, to AJ's point, first of all, I think she broke it down 100% when talking about the media question. Me being in the actual career, studying it, that's exactly how it is. And then to answer your question, is it modern day? Is it something different? I believe that when the culture changes, things have to shift and change. They don't necessarily stop, right? So when you think of slavery and when you think of today, you can kind of say that slavery really hasn't died. It's just changed in very modern day forms. You can hint that as the modern day incarceration, where we have free labor going on with a lot of Black and brown people incarcerated, and a lot of these companies using that free labor and using the 13th Amendment for that. You understand what I'm saying? I won't necessarily say that like, you know, the police killings is modern day, because we've been learning that for years. You know, we've been seeing that for years. Like, I can go back and go. I've asked my grandma. I've asked my OGs and my old heads, and they say this is nothing new. You know what I'm saying? This is nothing new. They actually said, like, y'all got it kind of better in a way. You know what I'm saying? Y'all got it kind of better because what y'all getting is, and this is what they told me, what y'all getting is half of what we got, right? It's only half of what we've experienced. So when I hear that and when I see it and when I learn it and when I continue to watch documentaries and read books on our people and our modern day racism, right? Because I think what we're losing, and I think what people are losing, is that we kind of have two kinds of racism. We have slavery that goes from 1619 all the way to 1865, and then we have modern day, right? We have like the post MLK, post Malcolm X. You can even go back to Jim Crow and everything. We have that. Those are two different types of cultures that we have to, first of all, dissect, go down the middle, and then explain and then understand. And that's why that's why I say it necessarily does not change or stop. It just shifts. It doesn't really stop. It just shifts. It goes into new ways of forms, if you want to call it that. It goes into new forms, new ways of slavery, new ways of just discrimination, racism. You know, when they couldn't hang us, when they couldn't kill us out in the public, segregation came along, right? And that's what I'm saying. It goes into different forms. So I think the more that we educate ourselves, because I think that this is the time where America as a whole needs to be educated on our history. That's going to be the biggest hurdle that America has to get over, because in order to educate, people have to take acknowledgement and people have to take accountability. And that right there, the one thing that a lot of folks is not ready to do right now, right? Accountability and taking that acknowledgement. One, because we have been taught two different histories. We as Black people know white hair. We know our history. We know their history and our history. They just know their history or what they've been told, what they've been taught. Christopher Columbus sailed blue in 1492. Okay, that's what they know. They know that. They don't know everything else. And when it comes to the media is literally the cusp of majority versus minority. Jason, you know this. We live in a city where we can literally see the example of majority versus minority. If I go from Grand Rapids to Detroit, if I go back home, the commercials are completely different than here. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, completely. The people in the media and how they work are completely different. The networks themselves are completely different.
Yeah.
So it's not what literally it's really not what the media is doing. Is what they're showing to others, right? What are they showing to the majority? What are they showing to us? They're going to show us, yeah, black on black crime is the thing, right? But then when you go into the majority and you see the world, you see, oh, crime is at a all-time high. Come on now, you got to watch the verbiage.
Mm-hmm.
You got to watch the vocabulary. So it's to me, it's not really a thing of modern day anything. I think things are still continuing to happen in its true form, just it's changing. It's shifting. It's not stopping. It's just changing new ways. So yeah.
And just to, also like piggyback off of what he's saying, I mean, it was only like, in 2009 when Homeland Security warned the public that white supremacists entering the forces, more because a black president we were getting a black president. So
Absolutely.
they were coming in it. That's where they infiltrate themselves within the force so they can, get away with their dirt. Not saying, like I said, not all of them are bad, but this is how
not everyone is bad.
To be able to do what they do, but under the law, they're behind that shield, so it's okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And that stuff is starting to reveal itself now. It's only just 2019 that someone from Michigan, someone was found with a KKK application. I'm like, they got applications?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Applications to join.
Yes.
So,
had it hung in his wall, had it in his house.
Yes, and these are things people don't know. Like, they don't do that. Yes, they do.
They still do it. They still have it. Like,
this is how they get
because we don't hear it in the media, just because we don't. And here's the thing: because people don't, and I want people to understand this. Just because you don't hear it in the media does not mean it's not still happening or it's not still out here. Right? That's the biggest thing. Just because you don't hear it on CNN, WHN, NBC, MSNBC, just because you don't hear it on your favorite YouTube show or whatever, does not mean it's not out here. They playing low key. They know what they doing because they low key smart.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm about to say, I was about to get to you.
Yeah, I got to jump in here.
Something for the past 5 minutes.
So just with the last two questions. So the imagery as far as blackness in modern media. So one of the things, and I think I'm gonna preface it with this: when you go into an AA meeting or an NA meeting or something like that, any type of 12-step program, it begins with you have to first acknowledge where you are and what you have done. Yes. And then you begin the 12-step process or whatever, how many steps there is. So, that moment of you saying, I'm Brian Redman and I'm an alcoholic, that's you acknowledging what you are. Then the 12-step program, and part of those steps, it's actually you taking responsibility for the things you've done, in spite of how you were brought up, in spite of everything else that has happened in your life, all of your baggage that you have to take responsibility and you have to be accountable for the things that you have done while being an alcoholic. If you don't do that, your sobriety will not be successful. And I say that to say this: as far as black people in America, black folks, hood folks, niggas, whatever you want to call us, we have refused to do that part, but we're trying to work the other steps. And I think that's our problem, because like when we talk about the media, yes, the mainstream media skews any and everything, because the mainstream media, it's not for it's not ran by the public.
Right.
There are people that own these media outlets. It's a small number of people, a small percentage, but they literally control the narrative. And we know this as adults. So we have to be the main ones. And that's why I love things like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of these different platforms. We have the obligation and we have the opportunity to actually be the ones to seek the truth, to actually go after all of the footage, to want to see the entire story, to want to hear from everyone. That's on us. We have this thing to where we try to tax this one particular company or this one particular corporation with doing the right thing for everyone. And that's not the type of world we live in. And that's definitely not the country that we're in. I say this to people all the time. The United States of America, it is the greatest country on the planet. But best believe there is a ton of opportunity and growth for us to change, to become better. Everybody else that's out here in the world, we get to do a whole lot more than what they get to do. Us doing this right now, try to do it in North Korea. See what happens to you. You can't. You can't do it. So it's like we have to understand that where we're at and what we're doing and what's going on, there's an accountability piece that we have to take over. We have to take control of. We are constantly asking for the man or the system to do right by us. It has never happened, and it will never happen.
Come on, preach, King.
So when we're talking about what we're saying as far as the modern, the police killings and things like that, when we're talking about those kind of things, yes, there is a small percentage of it being biasness, prejudice, or what we label as racism. There is a percentage of that. The greater percentage of it is changing the laws and actually us becoming part of that thing that we want to change. And we don't want to do that. If we really want to change what police do to us, we need to be the main ones changing the laws, writing the laws, fixing the laws, and we need to be the main ones joining the police department, becoming police officers, so that we can have control of that thing. Look at Hollywood. Hollywood is the land of dreams where you can go and become anything and all that stuff that they sell you. But we know who runs Hollywood. We know who runs Hollywood. And the reason why they run it is because they said, hey, let me not only go out here and I'm not going to march up and down the streets with signs saying, let us Jews into Hollywood. No, we're going to get our money up. We're going to buy this little company. We're going to buy this little studio, and we're going to buy the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one until we got our own corner. Now we got the corner. Let's move down the block. And it took them, quite a few years to do it, but they've done it.
Yep.
So everything you see that's being produced as far as a movie or television show, there's a Steen, a Stein, a Goldberg, a Hausowitz or whatever behind it, because they put themselves in that position. We as Black folks, we need to put ourselves in position to get those things that we want, but it all starts with acknowledging where the bulk or the majority of our problems are. And it's with us. We don't want to look in that mirror.
Preach, King.
Come on,
so
part of this is me challenging myself of listening. So I'm gonna take that jab real fast.
You got to.
Let somebody else.
Just say it.
Wait. So I'm gonna get on. All right. So I'm gonna get on my soapbox real fast.
Go ahead.
Hey.
And then for the rest of the show, I'm not gonna do it. Okay. AJ kind of got a bulk of that the other day, so I'm gonna get on my soapbox. So I'm gonna go backwards off of what you said. So you were talking about mainstream media when it comes to actual people of color in mainstream media. If that was the case, then so for example, you talk about the Jewish people and stuff like that. That was one of the biggest problems when they had the Irish coming over here in this country, and at one point in time, they was looked at as indentured servitude as well as the same way as also at one point in time slaves. So at one point, they said that white people cared more about black people or their slaves because of the fact that they were property and they didn't want to lose their property. So they didn't care about the Irish if they died building up these man-made lakes and stuff, so on and so forth. But the reason why Irish people were able to get signs that no longer said no niggers, no coloreds, no dogs, no Irish is because of the fact that Irish was saying we are also white the same exact way. When we can actually even trace this back also to World War II with the Holocaust. The reason why it was such a big deal about the whole people of Israel is because of the fact that a lot of those people who were Jewish people were white. Now, I thought that you were going to go into a different way in the conversation that me and you had, Brian, which I'm going to leave that up for the next question. But when it comes to sitting there saying that we need to take control of our imagery or our messages and putting ourselves in those ways, we have done that. We argue that we have done that several times. We had BET, but now it's owned by Viacom, which is another multi-white company. We have HBO, but guess who owns HBO? AT&T. But guess what? We are always checking up on Sundays for watching for Insecure and Watchmen. We praised Watchmen for how fucking woke it was, but yet still AT&T is the same company that's also supporting our current economic situation and our current leader, I guess you would say. I want to say that. But so
well, wait. Well, let me ask you this with what you were saying though, because you said those things that you named, they're owned by someone else. They're on someone else's
but
platform.
Every time we had a chance to own something, it always got taken away. That was like the big issue about, for example, in Natchez, Mississippi. Natchez, Mississippi, these people wanted to start these businesses. I kind of explained this earlier, is that like these people wanted to start business and stuff like that. Well, they had these white supremacist groups, go full fucking Tulsa, Oklahoma, on these people in Mississippi who wanted to be working in business and stuff like that. It's very difficult to sit there and say that we need to put ourselves in those images and stuff like that. And we can't control the narrative because there's always some white person who's always right there they're ready to kick you in the back of the knee. So hold on, because
you said like a bunch of different things. So I want
to
be clear.
I did do that.
Yeah, I want to be clear on what you're saying. So like, for instance, Tulsa, Oklahoma, let's chalk that up to white racism. Fine. That was however many years ago it was.
Well, also, white racism comes for, like I said, about the Natchez, Mississippi situation. Okay. They did literally the same thing in Natchez, Mississippi. Okay. For basically destroying black businesses.
When was that?
Black people. That was in the 1960s and 50s as well.
Right. Okay. So out of those things that you named, I would say the only recent one was Bob Johnson selling BET.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. That was fairly recent within the past 20 years that took place.
All I'm asking to those history. Though.
Yeah, but what I'm asking though is who took BET from Bob Johnson? Because from what I can remember, he sold it for a boatload of money.
Yes, but also he sold it with the intention of as well being able to keep that same narrative of blackness in there. Now, with that being said, you're right.
I just want to be clear. I just want to be clear. You said that he sold it, but you said what was the other part?
Let me speak my piece.
Yeah, I want to hear the other part.
Because if I answer that one question, you're not going to be able to you're taken away from the rest of what I have to say about it. So I will say this: you're right about Bob Johnson selling it. But it doesn't stop the fact that there's many people who are trying to be like Brian Redman, Ty Hicks, who are trying to establish themselves and are constantly being able to have to find their back way of it. Like we sit there, we talk about like Friday, the movie Friday. Friday was considered a classic movie, but are you seeing Friday on HBO? No. Are we seeing Baps and all the rest of those movies on, for example, like AMC? No, we're not. We're seeing those movies on fucking BET or Centric, maybe. Those are channels that are not popular channels for other people. But at one point in time in the 90s and the 80s, when CBS bought out this company, everybody could talk about UPN, where that was the center of blackness at one point in time. WB at one point in time was another center of blackness at one point in time. The same thing with Fox. When we started to actually, I guess you could say, Killer Mike would say, is integrating ourselves into these white systems, we started to lose our power. We started to lose our traction. We started to lose our face in media. So, for example, we used to have the Wayans brothers. We used to look at apartment.
Yeah, but you saying
go ahead.
You're saying that they took it from us, and they didn't.
But they did.
No, hold on. Nobody
for blackness and brownness.
Bob Johnson, you said that Bob Johnson sold BT to some white people essentially and said, but you got to keep it black. How in the hell can I come and buy something from you and then do what you tell me to do with it and expect it? Wait, just let me finish.
For example, Fox.
Wait, but just
UPN.
Okay, wait, but let me finish because you're piling on
shows.
Wait, you're piling on a bunch of things and then you're not giving opportunity for them to be challenged. So it's like if you're saying
I'm not doing that. I let y'all talk. So that's what I was.
No, I'm saying that if you're saying that I'm saying the verbiage that you're using is what I'm challenging, because you're saying that they took it. Now, if you say that they came and they took Tulsa, Oklahoma when they bombed it from black folks, I said I'll concede that. I'll give you that. When you said what they did in Natchez back in the 60s, I'll concede that. Nobody beat up Bob Johnson, put a pistol to his head and made him sign away BET. Nobody.
Large quantities though.
Yeah, so all of those other black shows,
one BET.
But all of the other
at one point in time, like that we had, that was like the whole premise of like black exploitation and these several shows. So it wasn't just Bob Johnson,
right? And that's what I'm saying. All of these other shows, they were still on a white network. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So you can't charge the white folks to uphold our blackness on their platform in the media.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I can't go. I can't. That's just like me going to Cadillac saying, I want y'all to keep making the 1988 Fleetwood because that to me is the best Fleetwood. Well, dude, you didn't design the Fleetwood. You don't own the Fleetwood. Yeah, but I still want y'all to make it because I like it. That's essentially what you're saying. If they had all of these black-centered shows, black essential media outlets, whatever the case may be, you can't be mad when they choose to not fund it or take it away or just cancel it. I'm tired of seeing black folks on BT. Take them all off. I'm tired of seeing the Wayans brothers on WB. Take them off. I have the right to do that if it's mine.
Brian, because at one point in time, for example, what was that called? What you talking about, Willis?
Different Strokes.
Different Strokes.
Arnold Jackson. Yes, sir.
Different Strokes and Rerun.
What's happening?
What's happening?
Mm-hmm. Those were the most popular shows at one point in time, but we still supported. They degraded the actual, and also Good Times were the highest rated grossing shows at one point in time. Mm-hmm. And even at the same time as we had Leave It to Beaver, and we also had I Love Lucy. But I Love Lucy was not a popular show at one point in time. But they got rid of those shows within like 2 or 3 seasons. But they kept I Love Lucy going around for 5 to 7 seasons.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true. I'm explaining why. When you're talking about TV show success, one of the milestones or one of the mile markers of successful TV show is syndication.
Yep.
It's syndication.
Yes.
But at the same token,
I Love Lucy, syndication.
Because you try to equate success. You try
to success. I'm saying what I'm saying.
So if we're talking about equating success,
let me finish. Just let me finish.
Why can't we? No.
You said no. You can't let me finish my point. Okay, go ahead.
What's that point?
Go ahead.
I think we're way off subject, to be honest.
we talk
about.
Go ahead, man.
I was like, wait a minute.
That's why I tried to finish my point. You gotta let me finish my point.
Yeah, let him finish.
But that's okay. No, I really want to. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm challenging myself to listen. This is that part is not working out on that end. I'm gonna go back on topic for what this fucking because this is
you
a whole
got him all distraught. Thanks.
I did. So let's talk about that boy Jesus. With that being said, damn.
Mercy.
Yeah. Let's go back to it. So earlier we was, like I said, we was talking about the modern day lynching, the imagery of media and stuff like that. Brian. So
Brian, we're gonna have to do a podcast.
I feel like it's just gonna be.
Can I speak now?
I did a show
You
with
just sitting here watching.
No,
I did a show with Brian, and I swear to God, this conversation did go a lot better. But at the same token,
Here's let me say this.
right.
Here's the thing. I don't mind a conversation being organic, but like to Adrian's point, the reason why it's going left, it's because the points that that we need to make, we just need to make them and let the other person respond. If you take a point that you're trying to make and you make it into like a monologue almost, then that takes away from the conversation. Not saying that you're right or you're wrong. It's
I didn't
taking
even
away from the conversation.
Articulate my point.
I'm saying you articulating your point, but you should just break it up so that I can respond to it. Because like all of those things you said from your perspective are valid points. However, if you don't give me a chance to respond, we can't have a conversation. That's all. It's just basically you talking, then I'm talking, and they watching. That's all it is.
Because I mean, me and Adrian been sitting here. I'm gonna just keep it 100. Me and Adrian been sitting here for the last 10 minutes watching you two go crazy.
I know.
And, see. Look what you're doing. You're doing it now.
Go ahead.
You're doing it now.
Okay, go ahead.
Now. Okay.
Thank you, Ty.
You're doing it now.
I know.
Relax.
Okay, go ahead.
Relax.
Okay.
We've been sitting here watching and listening.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you were literally like the main thing that I seen and heard from you was like, let me say my point. You told Brian to let me say my point. Once Brian let you say your point, you literally went into a whole monologue and broke everything down.
We're gonna rewrite that back.
You better look. And I'm like, and he's not the only one. If you look in the chat, they're saying the same thing.
And then when you ask Brian to literally rebuttal, Brian rebuttals, and then you interrupt him.
All right, cool. All right, that's fine.
He was laughing.
That's what I said in the very beginning. I'm challenging myself to listen.
Okay.
So I'm trying to listen. But that's okay. That's why I said I was trying to go on my soapbox, but that's okay. That's all right. I respect that. I'm gonna.
He didn't say he was getting on the soapbox though.
I did say that I was on a soapbox.
Yes, you did, but that wasn't a soapbox. That was a soap couch. That was a soapbox couch. You put your arms up and stretch your feet out and rest your mouth. You got it in.
Expect it to be long and just ramble.
Okay.
Really, the one thing I was taking time was explaining how I was going to talk about it, but that's okay. We're going to go to question number 3, which is should police departments be closed down, reformed, or left the same, and why? Go ahead. I'm going to go with you, AJ, since it seemed like y'all was having a lot of time.
What was the question?
See, we ain't even here yet. We're not even here yet.
Woo! Okay. So
I'm here.
Police departments, whether they should be closed, reformed, or keep it the same, right?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, being, what I just spoke to just a bit ago about the infiltration of white supremacists, we know do exist. Police, I believe, and the police departments need to start policing themselves in, knowing who's within that department. Because we always talk about when there's one bad apple, 2 bad apples, they all are bad. You're guilty by association. Mm-hmm. So if you continue to let that happen within your department, or you're consciously aware that these people exist, like, what are you doing about it? You know, it's gonna cause a chain reaction. You're putting these people out into the world to police, knowing what the motives of people who are white supremacists or in the KKK have. You know, like, you can't have people who literally have a hate towards Black people and expect them to be like, they're going to control that part of themselves. You know, they're just going to put that in the back of their mind and be, you know, what they, you know, supposed to be as the protector, someone that's going to, you know, fix whatever is happening. That's why you call them, you know, because something is wrong, you need to be protected. Right. Not saying because somebody having a barbecue, you know, and you're irritated by it, that's an annoyance, you know, like, don't do that. Don't do stuff like that. Like, legit, you need to, you know, be out. You signed an oath that you would serve and protect. That's what you're supposed to do. Not be hunting, not get in this department to use it as a mechanism to hunt, to get your feels in for what, you know, what you're a part of outside of that. And sometimes, you know, like I said, you know, people are legit in there because that's what they want to do. Yeah. They want to protect the people. They want to, this is their lifelong dream to be a cop. And there's nothing wrong with that, because those are the people that are really going to go forward and do what they are supposed to do. You see, like in 9/11, how everybody came together. It didn't matter the race. They in there to do what they're supposed to do and protect and serve and make sure everybody's safe. But it's like when they're just regularly seeking, you know, just anything, you know, and that's why I say, hey, make sure you have all your papers in order. You know, that is what we're taught in our families. Like, don't be getting out in the street with, you know, half as like your license expired, your tags expired, check all your lights, do all the 21 inspection check. So there's no reason for you to be pulled over. And then if you are, then you know that's a hunter, you know, because it's like, okay, well, what did I, or if you're not speeding, you know, it's stuff you just pay attention to, which, you know, as a law-abiding citizen, you just go about your day. But if you just get pulled over for nothing, that's the questionable part of it. It's like, okay, well, what did I do? What are you seeking? But that's why I say, you know, you have to police within your department to clean up that, the whole, you know, obstruction within that department, to be a good force and be respected and, you know, looked at as, you know, being trustworthy. Because right now there is no trust with what's going on. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say, yeah, I trust you with these past happenings, these incidents. So
yeah, and you got something to say, Ty?
Reform, stay the same, or what? Like shut it down?
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes by. Listen, I always say, like, every environment has a culture, and there are various environments that have different cultures, right? It just it's different it's different when you go to a very diverse community than when you go to the hood. You understand what I'm saying? Being I grew up in the hood, it's very different. You feel me? Like the police departments over there where you and then going into a very middle class neighborhood, then you go into a upper class. It's very different. Like, I think reform needs to happen, period, across the board. But I think there needs to be a little bit more immediate reform within the police departments that police, you know, a lot of the hoods around America, period. Because a lot of those cops don't live in the hood. You understand what I'm saying? You have cops that's policing the hood that live in these big ass houses, that live in these gated ass communities, that don't see black people until they put the fucking blue and badge on. You understand what I'm saying? So I can't, when I get asked that question, I can't fully answer that question to this degree because it is different in every environment. Everybody has it different when they look at the police. You understand what I'm saying? When it comes to when you ask another black person that, they can truthfully, honestly tell you, I've never had an issue with the police, but I can see where you're coming from. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody has their different experiences when it comes to the police. I feel like it needs to be broken down to a microcosm. Like, you have to break this down where there are different police departments that have different cultures, that run differently in different sectors and in different parts of America, especially if you break it down from a state level to a local level. Like, you really have to, it's levels to this shit. Like, you have to break that shit down. And until you really want to break that shit down, it's really, to me, everything is going to kind of stay the same until we kind of break it down to that microcosm level. And until we get to that place, that question is hard. So, yeah.
Okay.
And also, sorry, to bounce off those breaking downs, it's like, you know, cops are going to come across all types of people, regardless. So it's like we kind of look at them almost as like being able to read people, knowing how to read people and what's really going on. So say, for instance, I was on a city call last week, and I heard this lady talking about what happened to her son. Her son's 27 years old, African-American male, but he has Down syndrome. So her son, felt like he was panicking and called 911 for help. She wasn't there, but she was almost home. She was a little ways out, but he called to get help because, that's what he was taught, to call 911 if something is wrong, to come and help him if she's not available or if the dad wasn't available. They basically, what happened in I'm not going to say poor, but what happened was that they criminalized him because they didn't know how to respond to him. They thought, as a Down syndrome person, whatever the reaction can be, can be taken wrong, as if they might be drunk or they're incoherent or they're not speaking correctly. So they take it in a different way and thinking, oh, you must be on something, because in this guy's eye, this is literally her report, the officer said, there are no Black Down syndrome people. What kind of response is that? Like, to say to someone, to be so narrow-minded, to not think that that Black people don't have people with Down syndrome. Like, are you saying that this is just a white thing, or and this is what you're using to get away with something? I don't know. Like, he called you, but now you're criminalizing him. So they basically, because they didn't know that he had Down syndrome, they cuffed him because they thought he was a threat, because he was freaking out, and put him in the car.
Right.
So it's like these, where the reform comes, it's like, how do you interact with people? Are you looking at them as criminals as soon as you come out on the street? Like, or are you out, like, to make sure people are okay? So that's where it's like, where's the mentality really with the police when they get out, when they get on the street? Because they know they're already trained to shoot to kill. They're already going to those trainings like that. If you shoot, you're shooting to kill someone. You basically have to have a mentality of a murderer to be able to be okay to kill someone. That is the trainings that they're going through. So we already know this is within their mentality. This is part of their job. But when it comes to that, knowing how to interact with people who, are of a threat. They can't separate that. They're trained to have this mentality of the murderous mentality, but then it's like you hope that they know how to work with or know how to decipher whether someone is actually inebriated or drugged or they have a mental health issue. And they can't take they can't tell they can't tell the difference because their training is so short.
Now, Brian.
Oh Lord, here we go.
So
hop off for a minute, Ty.
Brian did a whole show on similar.
These two.
So here's my thing about it with direct response to the question. Should police departments be closed down, reformed, or left the same, and why? I think nothing should ever just be left the same. I think that there's always opportunity to grow. There's always opportunity to change to be better. When it comes to the reform piece, I absolutely think that the reform has to start with the law. If you're going to change anything, you have to change it by changing the law. The police job, and a lot of people have this confused because this is an old 1970 mentality of policing. Serve and protect is not the police job. They are not here to serve and protect. A police officer's job is to enforce the law. That I'm not here. A police officer is not here to console you. A police officer is not here to check on your mental health. A police officer is not here to make sure that everything in your life is working out just fine. A police officer's job is to enforce the law. That means when a law is broken or there is a suspicion of a law being broken, that is where a law enforcement officer comes into play. When you're talking about how that interaction goes, when you're talking about the people skills that it takes for that action, for that interaction to be successful to where nobody's dying, then absolutely, yes, there is opportunity for training for that. I believe that law enforcement officers, their FTO, which is their field training officer time, should be extended to at least 1 year. I believe that there are certain aspects of law enforcement officers that they don't have the training for because, like you said before, Ty, there are some law enforcement officers whose first interaction with a black person is when they on the job and they 25 years old.
Yeah.
That's why I've always said police officers should live in the communities that they police.
Absolutely.
Because if I live where I'm policing, not only
agree.
am I in it every day, but I have to, and I'm forced to learn the people that I'm around. If I grow up in the area that I'm policing, I now have not only known the person that I may be pulling over, but I know his daddy, I know his uncle, I know his mama, I know his grandmama, I know their people, I know their cousins. So I now have a better perception of who the good folks and bad folks are in my neighborhood. Because like AJ said, being trained to put down or to shoot having a murderer's mentality, yes, I need to have that mentality because I'm dealing with murderers. Right. One of the things that people don't want to acknowledge and understand, law enforcement officers, every time we walk out of the door, we put on that vest, we may not come home because some really bad guy might choose differently. So that is I can't treat everybody like they're the best person and they have the best intentions for me in my life. I have to perceive them like people perceive snakes. Are all snakes poisonous? No, but you sure as hell don't try to find out which ones aren't and which ones are. You treat them all as poisonous, so you're more skittish towards them. You're more cautious towards them.
Right.
Okay.
That was a great explanation. I love that.
Thank you.
Let's go, man.
Well, what do you think, History Williams?
I'm listening.
You have listened. I'm listening. See, look. Let me help you.
I'm listening.
Let me help you.
You don't have to help me.
Let me help you. Let me help you.
I read it. I was reading the comments at the same time.
Let me help you. Let me help you. From one content creator.
Forget, I'm timing everybody, so it's okay.
From one content creator to another. Let me help you. So what you did was fine. Now, like you just went around because you're facilitating this. Now, since you went around, Now give your opinion and then move on to the next point.
I'm
If
about to
there
move
is
on to the
something,
next point. That's all
yeah,
I
okay. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. No, that's fine.
I'm just challenging myself.
Yeah,
to
that's
listen.
that
I'm trying to
that's
give y'all
that's fine. But
I'm almost at a platform for several different layers. But like I said, again,
all right,
I'm trying to just
that's fine that you make the choice. You make the choice to do what you want. All I'm saying is that
Hey,
for what you
I could. I'm not saying I could. I'm just trying to.
Go ahead.
No,
hey, B, let me tell you, B, your comment section is popping.
yes, and here's my thing. You can't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to. Do not pay attention to the chat. As one of the things I will promise you, do not pay attention to. You can glance at it, but if it's gonna hit you and you gonna wear your emotions on your sleeve, don't pay attention to it, man. I don't.
I'm reading the room. Y'all told me that I was a little, not only the chat, but y'all said I was taking the time to point.
Listen,
I'm gonna get. I told you. I'm
Go
listening.
ahead, sir.
Tell them doing.
Go ahead.
And I will say this is that like I think we all kind of agree that it's more so for reform. And you say to this to the extent that like we need to treat them like snakes, and I get that. I get that point specifically. I would just ultimately, I'm going to leave my opinion limited when I just say that like I think that we should definitely just reform. I think that we should definitely just have different roles and different phone calls and stuff like that. But with that being said, with any job, there's new things that comes up all the time, especially if you're working in a police or retail role. You do not approach the same person in retail the same. Usually you do the same script after you say hello, but you never greet the person the same. You always do. It's always a different kind of like solution that you have to do in the end to get the final result, which is basically ring that person out, cash that person out, or in this case, police making sure the situation is safe. So I want to sit there and say that we should still hold police officers accountable, even if we sit there and say that we're going to reform. They need to be able to also be able to handle a situation if a person has a mental distress, or if a person looks like they having heat exhaustion, but it looks, because of the fact that heat exhaustion also looks the same way as a person who's drunk on the street. So a person needs to be a person who take that badge, that oath, should also be able to handle a situation and be able to actually observe that environment around that person, not automatically sit there and say, I'm going to be a guard dog, or I'm going to be just like ready to shoot a person because I got this armor on when I walk out the door. You should just be definitely looking at your community or the place that you patrol as the environment that it is, not necessarily because of the fact that you're assuming it could be something else. That makes sense what I'm saying?
Either that
That's
or create a whole totally different force, the light force versus the heavy force.
I don't
something has to happen. That's putting a lot of pressure on them too. You know, you're training that military mentality, you know, to go out and
that's kind of where I was going, is that you are doing that, but I think that like you should still be accountable for approaching different people, because like you go to the store, you go anywhere else, and you bump into different people. How you're not going to say the same thing is going to happen when you do a job such as policing people. So you should be able to at least have some type of level of training to be able to sit there and say, all right, maybe this person may have Down syndrome. Or, for example, about 4 years back, you a caregiver and you taking care of a person with autism, and you're sitting there saying, this person has autism, don't shoot. Don't shoot the damn person. Don't shoot the person with autism neither. Like, be able to practice listening and being able to actually practice being able to observe the situation and not just assuming. That makes sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and here's where I guess my issue lies with the public versus the police. Gotcha. All of us have had jobs at one point or another for some period of time. Yes,
absolutely. Yes.
If you take your job, the longest job that you worked, whether it's for 2 months or for 20 years, would it be safe to say that every person at their job has had a bad day, or if it's a career, have even had bad moments in that job, in that
Oh,
time in that
what?
job.
I can count on my hand.
Okay. So with that being said, that goes to show you that there is a human fallacy piece to policing,
Yeah.
that just because of the graveness of the responsibility still does not mean that they can't have a bad day. Doctors have bad days.
Right.
Airplane flight what do you call it? Damn, I done lost my pilots. Have
Pilots.
bad days. Right. I don't know where my mind went. Pilots have bad days. They have a grave responsibility, but they still have bad days. Now, there is a line to be drawn, and that line is the law, because that is what governs us all. So those expectations that we have of a particular group or a particular set of people, using that law to govern that, you can train around how that gets executed. So if we can say there's a law to where you can't go outside, fine, that's the law. However, the way it gets done can be totally different. I could either do it with my military, or I could do it with my local community leaders to explain to people what they need to do and why they need to do it so that it can get done peacefully. The thing about law enforcement is just that. There is a huge training aspect to it, to where you have to learn people skills, and unfortunately, we're not born with those. You have to learn them from interactions with people.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. That was good.
Okay, so we're gonna kind of get off of police officers a little bit more. Actually, no. I'm gonna jump one question real fast, which is law enforcement is still held accountable for like the deadly force that they use. So, for example, there's publications like The Guardian who actually keep track of it. So if you ever seen a website that called Fatal Force, it actually keeps track of, for example, people who got shot and killed, or at least reported that. In I want to say 2014, if I'm giving my date correctly, I don't have my note up on it. They started collecting these news reports. I mean, not them, but the Justice Statistics made it a requirement to be able to actually count how many times there was use of deadly force amongst police officers. But in turn, it was just it was supposed to be required, but they're not harsh on it. They're not strict on them for doing them. So, for example, The Guardian has could have a person that's like a month of deaths, which is about 700, but Michigan could say that same area, Michigan, let's use that for an example, could say that they only had 20 killings. So they're not reporting the numbers of deaths. It's also not reported, same thing for autopsy reports, as well as also when a person goes to the hospital. So do you think that the lack of data being collected is the contributor to the lack of system and policy change? Or do you think that we could do something more with this information outside of actually worrying about policy change? Or do I need to clarify that question? Let's break it down in one part. Do you think that this lack of information is the reason why we don't have policy change?
No.
Why?
When did statistical data actually start coming out?
The first data, I really want to say it was the 2014.
No. When I mean statistical data, I mean overall statistical data. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
And see, statistical data statistical data has not been actually a thing since the NASA days, when they started trying to get to the moon and everything. That's when statistical data was everything. Police brutality, racism, and everything, gentrification, all of that has been happening for 400 fucking years. Okay? This ain't nothing new. This ain't nothing new. Statistical data ain't it shouldn't be a factor on how we should see policy change, because everybody has a brain and everybody's very intelligent with it. Everybody's very conscious in how they and what and how they do. They've been doing this before statistical data was even established as statistical data. Like this didn't happen just off of, you know, this just didn't land on, you know what I'm saying, on Earth like, oh my God, statistical data, maybe we should change some policy. No, they've been making policy before this shit been happening. Before statistical data even was a fucking thing. You understand what I'm saying? When they putting numbers together, like, stop this shit. You feel me? Like, just stop it. Just cut it. Just cut the bullshit. They've been making this, they've been doing all of this shit before statistical data. So that right there is, if that is a thing, that shouldn't even be a argument, a question of anything, because policy making, leaders making policies has been established since America was damn near established. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
So I'm like, when you hear that, when people, because people really have those comments and say like, well, the statistics show, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. My people been dying before statistics was even founded. Okay? Period. In this country, period. Policy making against my people have been happening before statistics even decided to show his ass up at the door.
Yeah.
So
I'll say, you know.
And also, I wanted to correct myself. It was June 2015 when they started actually putting that information together. But go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, AJ.
Well, I'll say to statistics, just like any kind of movement or change, it's not a fast movement. It can be used though as ammo, right. You know, to show, you know, what is actually going on. It's just there's not the right people receiving it the way they need to in order to change what needs to happen. Right. So that's where you need to put the right people in place that understand what these statistics are supposed to do in order to change what needs to happen.
All right.
Not saying, you know, don't ever do away with statistics because that's what you need. That's just like in a court case. Right. You need evidence to show why somebody needs to be prosecuted or get off, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely.
All that information. Don't ever get rid of that, because that's just like saying, okay, well, get rid of the history books. Nah. They don't need to know what happened, and let's move forward, right, and hope for the best. Right. You know, that they don't know what's happening and they can just move amongst themselves and right. work this out.
Absolutely.
So I'm highly, you know, on what's going on here and who do I need to talk to, the right person I need to talk to move this forward, use this as ammo so we can fix this problem right here. And that's the breakdown. We're not going to get it all done in one strike of whatever, what all the issues that go on within this country, because there's, you know, like you said, it's a great country, but it has its flaws.
Yeah.
It has its flaws. It is not perfect, just like anywhere else.
Right.
But there are things, if we wanted to, you know, go in a positive direction for the future, for the kids, and not sit still and idle and hope like hell that things just level itself out. You know, if you don't speak up and say something, it's like a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Hello.
You have to speak up and say something about something and show, look, this is a problem. And this is why we've been tracking this.
All right.
What are you going to do about it? So use that as ammunition to fix those problems. Like, don't do away with somebody that's, you know, got the brain and time enough to track that stuff. Right. You know, that's where you got to hold them accountable too.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of stuff get lost. You know, going a little bit off is just like, when all the cases, like rape cases, were found in an abandoned building that they're not even looking at. All these cases just sitting there, you know, because they're not tracking it. They don't have to.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not going to visit it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to. They're lazy.
Yeah, big facts.
So it's like hold people accountable with that ammunition and that statistics, all your information, document everything. Be a
Yeah.
power force in
My mama
resources.
told me that. My mama told me that so early. Document everything. Write it down.
Be an old person.
Yeah.
Yup. I
Yeah.
saw him on the wrong side of the street. But this time, on this date,
Yeah.
at this
I'm
hour.
telling you, my mom has like a composition book, and every time she calls somebody on the phone, like literally, this was every time she used to call AT&T or Comcast when we had them,
Mm-hmm.
she would get out her composition book, and she taught me this: get out her composition book,
Yep.
the date down, write the name down, and document everything. So when she called back, oh yeah, I spoke to blue.
Yep. Like, you know,
about blue at this time on blue. I'm like,
yes. Arm yourself with education.
yeah, absolutely.
Everything. Every single thing. That is what's going to get you through.
Yeah.
Okay. You look like you have something to say, Brian.
Well, to answer what the question, I would say that you use statistics to support what it is that you are trying to justify. It's like it should be a supporting fact. So just like how when we talk about a particular group being discriminated against, okay, well, where's the statistical data to support that? So statistics would be important when you're talking about things as far as what the truth is and logically what should be the solution, and using statistics to back that up. Like she said, it's like ammo. It's having those supporting factors to say, well, hey, what you're saying could just be what you're feeling. What I'm talking about is actually truth. And here are the facts to support that truth. And here's the logic behind what it is that I'm saying. Just an example, like when you were talking about the shows, about Different Strokes and Lucy. Lucy been on for 6 seasons. Different Strokes have been on for 8. They're both syndicated shows. So it's like when we are talking about why something is or why something shouldn't be, then let's have the facts to support that, to say, and here is why, because this shows that.
Right.
And there you go. And then you can say, not just because this statistic says this, but now we can take those numbers and say, well, logically, what could we do to help compensate or prevent this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now going into that, we look at, for example, like we live in a world where almost everyone has access to like a device, right? With that connection, there is more opportunities for content creators and media personalities. Do you feel like this next generations of influencers have just as much responsibility as Black Lives Matter's political figures and journalists to inform people about these social issues, or should they be held accountable the same level as journalists? So I guess that's the question. You're nodding your head, Ty.
Really feeling this, so I'm gonna let him just run with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I feel like I'm in that space. When I see a lot of my peers, whether they are, the B. Simones, the Desi Banks, the DC Young Flies, the young Instagram, Facebook celebrities that you see, my disappointment with them has been their lack of voicing activism.
Yes.
Activism at this point in 2020 comes in a lot of various ways. What we're doing right now is a form of activism. We may not be on the front lines, but we are doing a form of activism. We don't have to be because of our ancestors and our OGs literally, doing that and giving us the ability to now have it to where we can spread the activism past just being on the front lines. So for me, when you have the ability to have a platform such as yours, and you are literally talking to the masses about selling books and selling merch and selling this and doing that, and you can't even post something that you can't even do the tiny bit of activism that is minimal. It pisses me off. It really does. Like it upsets me because I have multiple platforms, and on all my platforms, I've been doing my part. And the fact that I see my peers, my young peers, not doing that in a way, or doing it in their own way, or not doing it at all, is shocking. And I take note of that. I take note of that. I don't really. I say my piece, but I take note of that. And it's to sit here and say like, okay, are you comfortable? Are you too comfortable in your bubble right now? I think you need to pop that little motherfucker real quick, because you need to get them out your bubble, because when you go outside, you are still this color. Okay? You are still this color. Period. It don't matter how many followers you have. It don't matter how popular you are in LA or New York or whatever, wherever you pop in. It don't matter, because when you go the fuck outside, you are still this color. So that has been my issue. That has been my problem. When I see a lot of them, and the crazy thing is, a lot of them, I look up to them. You know what I'm saying? I study. I sit here and admire, and the fact that I wanted to see you in the broadest light possible, and probably the most better light possible, to see you really on your activism stuff. It's been half and half. I've seen a lot of people really just do it with no hesitation, and then when you see the comments attack them, that's when they sit here and want to sit here and put, oh, Black Lives Matter and oh, shut that shit up. Shut it up. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Don't do it just because Twitter told you to. Don't do it just because Instagram forced you to. Don't do it just because Facebook sat here and literally cried out to you. No. This is an undying burden that we have had. As Black people, we have to do our part. And your part is having this platform to literally speak out. And you have not said shit. You have not said a damn thing. And so I take heed of that. I take note of that. And I watch. I'm a very good observer, and I watch. And it's very disheartening seeing a lot of these a lot of people my age not speaking out with these bigger platforms, because the next generation is looking at people like us. They're looking at people like us. Why? Because they have the devices in their hands. They're watching us every day. They're on Instagram Live. They own Facebook Live. They're on Twitter. They're on Periscope. They're looking at our tweets. They're looking at our stuff. So the fact of the matter is, if they're not literally paying attention to our OGs and everything and paying more attention to us, then why are we not sitting here doing our part? That's my problem.
Okay.
Toggle it up to Brian.
I got the
ones that have their platform. So
I really wrote this question in design because I wanted you to be the last one to respond.
Okay.
To this.
Go ahead.
So AJ, I wanted AJ to be the last person to respond to this one. So
okay. So you want me to go now?
Yes,
okay.
I want you to go.
So my thing is this: I believe that everyone should have a choice. I should be able to choose if I want to be an activist or not. Mm-hmm. I should have a right to live my life, even if it is in a bubble, because it's my life. Mm-hmm. The people that are social media influencers, the people that have platforms, the people that have, whether it's a YouTube channel with 32 people subscribe to it, or mm-hmm. whether it's a Instagram that has 2.8 million followers on it, I should be able to choose whether or not what I want to, I should be able to choose what I use my platform for. The thing about it is this: everyone should be able to say whatever it is they want, whether it offends or whether it doesn't. I don't think that a Black Lives Matter group should be the compass for us because it's a political group, which means it has an agenda. I think that people should speak for themselves and they should think for themselves. That's the only way that we can actually truly get true understanding with one another and actually grow. If we're following some particular narrative for whatever reason, and we're not asking the questions and we're not speaking and we don't have a voice, then all it is an agenda that's being moved forward, like Black Lives Matter. It's a political agenda. The things that are happening with Black Lives Matter, it comes under this particular pretense, but what it's actually doing, it's a political agenda. That's it. So I think they have a right to do that, but I don't think that should be our compass. I think everybody, like a Ty Hicks, like a History Williams, like an Adrian Johnson, everybody who has a voice that wants to say something should have the right to say something and say whatever it is, regardless of what color, religion, creed, or whatever it is that you want to say. You should be able to say it, because if I don't like it, I have the option to literally go to the top right corner of my screen and hit the X and close it and don't watch it. And if I do like it, I can actually click the subscribe button and I can follow it. I can listen to it. I can share it. It should be our choice to choose what we listen to and what we don't. And just like me being a content creator, I should be able to choose what it is I put out and what it is I don't.
Absolutely.
I was gonna make a bad joke and say I don't appreciate that you just try to like plug in, follow, subscribe, and like, and watch it on your page.
And if you're watching this for the first time, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Yes.
Hey, I caught that. That was good. That was good.
Gotcha. We see that.
Hey, that's savvy. That's business savvy.
Now, AJ, the reason why I say this is because of the fact that you do web design. And so your whole thing is going around brands for other people, and being able to actually make their images come true, I guess. So I wanted to ask you last is because of the fact that most of the time you posting your stuff online, but you also are going out and speaking. So, but you even talked about having your own platform to be able to actually talk about social issues and like mental health in minority communities. So same question, but like I said, again, I wanted to get your perspective because of the fact that it seems like you are trying to travel that avenue of making a platform specifically to speak out on these type of issues.
Well, how I view that is to Brian's, his response to it. Yes, everyone should be able to have their own voice and say and do whatever it is they want on their platforms. But, I also see a little bit of a danger in it, depending on what information is being put out there too. Not say, like I said, not saying that, you can't, have your platform to have your own opinions and whatever you got to say to certain things. But the way I go about it is hoping to be a resource, in learning and, think about this, drawing the mind that's what our platforms are for. Is like when we say something, it triggers a person to think a certain way. So we are in some aspect, we're manipulators too. It depends on what message are you putting out there and how you're saying it. And when you get those followers or those people who are liking what you're saying, it's like, are you, damaging them, or are you moving them forward? Are you sitting them back? Or you have them sitting idle to really think on what you just said, and like whether it's right or not, and causing them to research more or dig more, like how good is your platform? Like, what are you saying to people to make them want to follow you so much? It's like you put out garbage, you receive garbage. You receive garbage followers. And they can take that and run with it. And say, well, this person said this, so it must be right. Like they can twist whatever you said because they're following you however they want, because they have their own voice. So there's a part where you kind of have to be careful in how you're broadcasting yourself to people and what you're creating, because there's somebody watching you just like anybody else. Just like, these young people watching us, they're like, oh, I like this person, I like what they do. We have our own celebritism, to the young people who do follow, or people within, these platforms that you create, that like what you do, and they start doing the same thing. So we're creating the trickle effect in the messages we put out and how they share it. And then you create another one of you. They could be worse, they could be better. It's just, I see it, that is also ammo in how you create your followers.
Yeah.
That's how, getting into cults, somebody putting out a message that sounds good to them, they
Amen.
start following. They have no idea whether they're following something good or bad.
Yep.
But they find out later, because the message was so deep and they didn't have a mind of their own to go and research and see if it was legit what's being said, and teach themselves a little bit instead of just going along with what's being said and being led down the stark hole, to a bad ending or a good ending. So it's like, what end of the spectrum are you on, and the message you're putting out into the world?
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So I realized one of the questions that I wrote down, it's a quick fire question, but also it could lead up to this other question, which is like, do you think that the Black community or people in general can come together to create a party that is pro equality for minorities such as Black people or any other like group? So, for example, like the vote that happened against transgender people, can we all come up with something to not make this a bipartisanship? So relying on Democrat or Republican votes. Can we make something where, for example, there's a third party? Like, I mean, I know that we see like Green Party and Tea Party out there, but do you think we can make a party and be successful in this system?
That is my question.
Yes, that's my question. That's my long, exaggerated.
I figured that was my question. I looked at that question like, that would be nice, but like, get out of that mentality of the homophobia and the pushing the LGBTQ or the queer Blacks like into one section, because we all have our own like discriminations and how we treat certain people within our own races. Once we can like maybe get past that part, we might be able to, but we can't put something out there and not have it all together ourselves.
That's true.
You got to have a strong leadership in supporting all aspects of Black.
Yep.
If you're going to do something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to know every single layer of being Black before you can do something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. And anybody else?
No, I think she said it, and I think that's kind of probably the uncomfortable part that we have to now get into. Honestly, that's honestly, AJ. I think that's where we have to get to now, is really just integration of every Black person, no matter sex or gender. You feel me? And at this point, that's I think our uncomfortableness of where we're trying to get comfortable in. Honestly, that at least that's where I see our community trying to get to, trying to integrate this uncomfortable feeling and trying to make it comfortable. But at this point, we just have to come to a compromise. It's not that you don't have you can like it or don't like it. It's whatever.
Right.
But
my life. Like, what does this
right.
have to do?
It's
like,
exactly.
That part of it is like telling everybody, like, well, it's my life. What is what I'm doing? How does this affect you? Exactly. I just want to live my life and how I live my life. Like, what part of you need to be integrated into what I do in my own home and who I love and whatever.
Because like I said, every time we walk out the house, we still this color. We still this color.
Got something to say up there.
B got it in.
I think that. Well, here's just my 2 cents on it. I think that we that are the minority, and whatever it is, when you're the minority, You have to make that thing that makes you a minority not the focus.
Right.
When you're talking about being black, being gay, being trans, whatever the case may be, trying to get someone else to celebrate or accept you, and it's the majority that you're trying to convince, it does nothing but create noise. And that's why we as black folks, we have so much noise in our group. That's why we can't solidify and actually forge something for ourselves. I don't care. And when you ask most people this, I don't care who any of you lay down with. I don't care who any of you choose to spend the rest of your lives with. It's not my choice. It's not my business. It is not my concern. So why would, if I want people to do something for me or to acknowledge me, the majority, because I'm one particular thing or this particular facet, how can I actually do that? How do you get 1,000, 1 million, 100 million people to say it's okay to be a black man in America? They really, truly don't care. They're going to do whatever it is that they're doing, whatever system is in place, whatever that is that's going that you feel is against you. You have to go against that thing and you have to figure out a way to change that thing. Not trying to say, well, because I'm trans, everybody should do this, or because I'm a black man, everybody should understand my pain. They never will. Do you realize there are places in America alone that are completely all white? How could they and why would they be concerned with the black man's experience? Just think about it. Take yourself out of the equation for a second and just think about that. If I grew up in White Town, White City, USA, in the state of white, why would I be concerned with what's happening in Gary, Indiana? It has no consequence to me. So the only thing that affects those type of things are money and power. If you have neither, you're literally asking for a handout. You have to put yourself in a position to where you are in power or you have money to get power. That's playing chess, as opposed to what we're playing is a lot of checkers. We're looking at the simple part of the game. Well, if I could just get this group of people to just say this, then I'm getting somewhere. You actually are not. You want people to respect you, not to give you nothing. If I give you something, then that means I kind of got some power over you. I kind of run you. Because you're dependent on me to give you something. Don't try to get a seat at the table like Tommy taught me. Build a table.
Okay. And I'm not gonna like go too hard on it, I guess. I think that there's a problem with that though still. In the long-winded way of saying this is that like you sit there and say that like we look at white America, there's a whole white towns. Well, me as a person who lives in Holland, Michigan was an all Dutch town at one point in time. But yet instead, and my father-in-law was one of the people, part of the families that first settled in Holland, his family. And now my father-in-law is married to a Hispanic woman. He has a Hispanic daughter, and now he has a black son-in-law. He also, for example, is the stepfather to my brother-in-law, who was in the Navy. This is going to sound like a roundabout reason. In a way, we have so many like people of color that's now in this family that's from Holland. So you should care that a person who's black in Louisiana and you live in Michigan has the same equal rights and opportunities as you, because that person can easily, for example, be your family member or your cousin, your brother or sister too. I didn't know when 2017 hit, I was going to meet actually we met in 2013. 2013, I was going to meet a Ty Hicks. I didn't know that shit. I didn't know that I was going to meet a Brian Redman at a Sam's Club. But at the same token, it still should matter that Brian Redman cares. It mattered. I didn't know there was a AJ out there. And yet still, I wanted to do this show to talk about layers of blackness and stuff like that. So you should still care about somebody else's rights and abilities to actually to have the same opportunities. I guess I'm kind of surprised at the way that you said that, because you're also the same person. We did a show, and also you even said it in the beginning, that we should also have those same people policing our communities, living in our communities. Black people should be able to actually exploit their own opportunities as well and make their own opportunities. But then we're going to turn around and say, well, why should a white man care? Well, the white man should care because of the fact that we are trying to make it our own opportunities. We are trying to make those spaces as well. And if you are taking up all the space, then that means that honestly, I'm not going to be able to have those same opportunities. I'm not going to have that same platform. I'm gonna go to another question. I'm not gonna go.
Well, just real quick to rebut that, I think you made an excellent point, and I think that you answered the question that you're posing. You answered it because that's exactly what the law is there for. That's why we have things like the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Do you realize that in Roman times, they had a law that said you could not see someone that is a Roman walking and carrying something and not help that person carry it. It would be against the law. So if you saw me struggling with some trees, or you saw me struggling carrying back a cow or something that I killed, you as a Roman could not walk past me as a Roman and go into town and watch me struggle. That was a law. It wasn't a thing where they hoped that Romans would take care of each other, to where they hoped that people would be nice for each other and care for each other. They made it a law to obligate that person to follow that. Now, if I didn't do that because I still had a choice, I would be breaking the law. And then I could be held responsible and accountable for what I did or did not do. So that's the exact thing what you're saying. If you're in St. Louis and I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it shouldn't be me caring about you because you're a brother and I'm a brother. It shouldn't be that you are History Williams and I'm the relationship rehab. It should be our law, because that's what governs us. To say, I can't walk up to you and hit you in the face because I don't like you, because that's assault.
I could get off on this whole law thing, like when it comes to rights to people and everything like that. But I'm not gonna, take this over with that, because, like I said, there are some laws that's still not in effect. Like we literally, what was it? Just in 2020. 2020.
But what did you just say?
A anti-lynching law, like that's a 120-year-old law, like bill. Like
so there you go.
This is a constant struggle to be like seen as an equal.
Who should be held responsible and accountable for just what you said?
Well, we keep pushing. Like I just literally had a petition going around taking all the, flack and pushback to try to get rights to be treated fairly as an LGBTQ person, to not be fired or discriminated against from my job, because they can do that.
Yes.
People are like, oh no, that's in the law. Like, how you know? Have you even looked at the laws that are like, how can you say that?
Because laws change.
If we're out here doing this, my thing is like, if we're out here doing this, then it must not exist. I'm not just making this up. Like you have to go through a process to be able to change what is in the laws. And some people just don't get on board. And
that's exactly it. She just summed it up. If there is a problem with either not having a law or a law being modified, that's our local politicians and local government that is not doing our bidding. They're not doing the job we put them in office to do. That's who our beef should be against. That's who our gripe should be against. There should be more protesting in front of mayors, congressmen, House of Representatives, state representatives, laws, offices than anyone in the world. Before we want to go march on 1600 Pennsylvania, we should be at our congressmen and our state reps offices holding them accountable, because we see them every day. That's exactly what she's. Yes, there could be. We have laws on the books. There's some states that have spitting laws. You can't spit or you can go to jail. Yeah, it's a law that's on the books, but it's not being enforced. If there is an LGBTQ community law that is on the books but not being enforced, that's where your politicians come into play. If there is one that needs to be written, that's where your politicians come into play. We are trying to hold each other accountable for the entire state of affairs while the politicians are sitting back watching, eating the popcorn. What they gonna do next? Okay, look like it's going this way. Well, I'm gonna get on their side. Yeah, you guys are right. Yeah, let's go, guys. I'm with you. The majority is over here now. Oh, okay. Well, election year coming up, so I think I need to start going to their church now because they about to vote. It's been 2 years. I got to get elected. Let me start showing up at church. And we see those things, and we're the ones that say nothing.
Yep.
I mean, again, like I said, I think that it's a double-edged sword. I know that like what we kind of are asking for or what we are talking about sounds unfair, but I think also the problem that we run into the most, and from what even I'm hearing, right? I did sit here quietly, and I did every now and then say something. But
you've been outstanding, man.
I'm trying my best.
You've been doing a great job, man.
You're doing really good.
You're doing really good, man.
Y'all stop it now.
So, I will say this though. I think that
we are. Ty rules with an iron fist.
We are still asking, kind of like basically like lay down on your stomach and put your hands up. We're still asking that in a lot of ways, because you're saying that we should also be able to make our own decisions, technically, right? But we also don't live in a place where we can make those changes. To quote you, Brian, you did also say, if we go to, I think I even had this conversation with several other people, is that it doesn't matter if you go to Robert E. Lee School. It's a good school, right? You should go there. But also we as Black people should be able to, or minority groups should be able to make our own schools, similar to like Jewish schools as well as Muslim schools. We should be able to make those same institutions, not expecting that change from this specific group or white people or however you want to describe them. I think that's still unfair because of the fact that, again, like I said, that space is still being taken up. If there's still a system that sit there and say that like Black people are not getting these loans for businesses and they're not getting these loans to own property and stuff like that, brown people are still looked at as immigrants and so on and so forth. The whole laundry list of stuff. I think that the problem is ultimately we're asking kind of the impossible in a lot of ways. We're asking so many different things at once and not really realizing and condensing our ideas down. So this is kind of going to my last question, which is, do you think that there will be just as much support for other communities, such as the LGBTQIA and Latinx communities, as there is for the Black community? That's the first part of the question.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that for me to answer?
Do you think that they aren't going to have that much support? Because we had like all these protests and these rallies for the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, so on. But we didn't really have these many marches for example, when we found out that Hispanic people were put into cages in Texas and New Mexico and so on. So are we going to actually, now that these people showed all of the support and this whole protest has become the biggest one in the world, are we going to actually give that same support to our fellow brothers and sisters of minority descent, or Black and brown people as well? Are we going to be able to do that for those people that's in the LGBTQ and cry for the same way?
I say no. I say no because any type of movement, there has to be money involved. If there's no money, there's no movement. People do realize that Black Lives Matter is George Soros. There is a billionaire behind that movement. That's not just people coming together. People are getting paid to do this thing, to move this forward. LGBTQIA and Latinos, if there is no money behind it, there won't be any support. Now you can be a flash in the pan and make some noise, and you can scream a little and holler a little bit. But if you're talking about true movement and true support, there has to be money behind it. And if there is none, then it will just be noise.
Yeah, I think the sad part about that is that we all know the money is the root of all evil. It controls every aspect of your life. It does not matter what it is you do. You know, yeah, we make a lot of noise.
Yes.
But it's like we're hoping to get like what organizations and movements look towards, even when you're petitioning, you know, you still seek those companies to be behind you to say, hey, they support us, then you need to get on board and sign. It's like, it's always, because as much as we want to have that powerful voice, we're out there yelling, we're out there, you know, hey, hear us, we need to change this. We still have to have some kind of, like, there has to be a pawn, like you say, playing chess. There's got to be a pawn in place to help you push that initiative and have that voice behind what you're trying to do. Because they're not trying to hear you. You got to play the game right and hit those people who are out in the media. They're well followed. They got the money. People listen to them. Yeah, we want people to listen to us too, but what you got to hit is the people who, you know, this is where we sell ourselves. Everybody is selling themselves. We are a commercial. We're walking commercials. We're walking billboards.
Walking brand.
Yep. If you want something moved forward, you got to go above and beyond. Get to that person that you need to push this initiative forward. Sell the hell out of yourself as to why they need to back this and why they need to, you know, speak about this on their platform, push that message, and then it starts getting pushed into the government, political stuff onto them. Like somebody knows somebody somewhere. You just got to play that game. And who are you talking to? You got to talk to the right people to get what you need done and push forward. And that's the part people forget. Like money just revolves around everything. Race revolves
rules everything around me.
Lifestyle
Cream, get the money.
revolves around
Dollar bill.
You have to tackle those people. You study those people too. It's just like a resume. You look into, okay, what have you done? What do you get into? And how can I talk to you in a way that I can get you to support me and push this initiative forward? So that's how, I look at that. It's like, yeah, it's great to have those organizations. You pump it up, you get that crowd going. It's just like starting a business. You want to get certain people on, like, what are you offering that is sellable? Why should I support this? So you got to have everything in place, and what you're saying, your wording, your statistics that in place. Like, we are our own lawyers. You have to think about it that way too. How can you convince this person to support you? That's the same thing in businesses. When you start your own business, how do you sell it? Like, how are we going to make this money? How are you going to be what someone needs, and why do we need to do this? It's all in conversation and how you push the initiative forward by, hitting the right people. The platforms are great. People become viral in how they put the message out too, so there's different ways, but the biggest way, of course, is who are you talking to and how are you getting your message across? And start small too. You can get in touch with anybody. I think so. Celebritism. Like, okay, who's low on the totem pole and how active are they with them? And so you start reaching out to that person. Then you reach out to the next person. And then you eventually get to where you need to go. It may be a little bit of a process, but it's possible. Nothing is impossible.
Okay. You, Ty?
Well, I want to say statistics is important. No. And I wasn't trying to say it like it wasn't important. I just hate when people just try to put statistics on everything and act like that is just the bridge to history. I'm just like, listen, bruh, okay, this shit been happening before. You've been looking at numbers, all right? But in a sense, all I gotta say is capitalism is a bitch. That's it. Capitalism is a bitch. It is a whole motherfucker.
I'm not cutting you off or anything like that. But do you think that, like, again, like, you know, for example, like AJ is a LGBT woman. Do you think that we are going to be supporting her or her group or her demographic when it's time for her to sit there and say, "Hey, we're not getting the same rights"?
I think first of all, Black people protest for everybody. Let's stop that. Like, let's cut that out.
Okay.
Like when we had those, when we seen our Hispanic brothers and sisters getting caged down south, we were there with them with the protest, synced it, all that. Like we down for everybody. The problem is, are people gonna be down for us?
I agree.
That's the problem.
I agree.
We've been down for everybody. If you look at history, if you really check out history for real, we all of us, our ancestors and shit, we have been down for every protest, every group, everything. Women's rights, equal rights, civil rights. I mean, every human right possible, but nobody is consistent. Nobody
and even in all truth, the LGBT equal rights, that's piggybacked off of civil rights. It's piggybacked off of that. And it's we started out with Black folks, white folks, and they were able to piggyback off of that. So it's a thing to where if we're trying to really get to the promised land, we have to take ourselves and our situation and say, okay, we have a bunch of little things that we can address, but the main thing is us getting a foothold in this economy and as not just consumers. We have to solidify ourselves and literally, like you talked about with banking, why is it that Black folks ain't getting loans for businesses or ain't getting loans for this or that? It's because there ain't no Black banks. All of these Black millionaires that we see and we know, all of these artists, athletes, these musicians, these businessmen, real estate investors, how come they haven't started a Black bank yet?
My questions.
Those are the things that we should be asking us. Saying, why ain't y'all got a Black? How come Jay-Z don't have a bank? How come Dre don't have a bank? How come these Black athletes, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, you could take them 5 people and put them together and they would have their own bank?
Yes.
If they did that, then the next thing would be Black folks. Where y'all banking? Well, I'm banking at the Bank of Black folks. Or I'm a bank with the Hood Bank of America, whatever you want to call it. But if you figured it out that way, now you have a foothold in finance. Now, when it comes to somebody that we know wants to start their own business, well, yeah, you can go apply at Chase, but as soon as they deny you, you can go to the Hood Bank of America. You can go to the Halloran Brothers or the Black National Bank or whatever the case may be. We have to create our own resources so that we can address our own issues.
Yeah.
Well, according to statistics, and I'm just kidding.
I was waiting on it. Let me see where she go with this.
I was ready for it.
According to my resources.
According to the 2019 poll right here.
United Bank. That's considered a Black bank.
One United Bank is a Black bank, though.
That's why I'm like, there is a Black bank.
There is. Here's and to Brian's point, it's like we're in 2020 now. We've crossed into a pillar of there are plentiful Black millionaires, whether in the media, in the celebrity status, or you want to talk about behind the scenes. There are plentiful of you guys that I am at the cusp of and I think that's my question, B, like to them is like, okay, you are now this, and I understand that with a lot more money, like Jay said, a lot more money come more problem. We get that. Okay, we understand that. But I think once you get to a point of where you can handle everything that you have, right? Because I feel like every time you elevate, you have to elevate internally, right? Every time you elevate externally, you have to elevate internally. You have to do both. So once you get to a place of, okay, I can handle these millions, I can now invest in things that are going to curate for my Black community, all of my Black community, then that is I feel like another big piece of how things can change. But as you said, One United Bank is the only Black bank that I can think of, right? AJ, like
that's the spread one, the one where you
right.
can use an ATM everywhere.
Right.
You know, there is like there's a list, and I could provide it for you guys. Right. Credit unions, banks, and whatnot. But that is the most now one where you can access it from anywhere.
And I believe there are some down south that have some Black banks down there. But I just know when it comes to the northern part of America, there aren't a lot
all over.
You know, you have there are some down south, more down south, and you got and when we talk about our culture, we kind of got to talk about, you know, the divide between the South and the North, because me being born in Florida and me living in Detroit, I can see it, right? I see how our Black people are very different, you know what I'm saying, in a lot of cultural ways and everything. However, it just speaks to how a lot of people have to just, when you make it and when you get to a point where you can handle your success, it's just like you got to kind of pour that success back into your community and into your people. And I believe there are a lot of people, to B's point, that have the handlement of their success, and they're just not, you know, creating more. Like, come on, man, you got to shake and bake a little bit. You know, you got to do a little something.
Sharing the wealth.
You know, you got to share.
But I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. The things that we're talking about and the changes that we're talking about making, those are things that are implemented on a family level. Those are things that we're talking about, getting Black folks together to do this, Black folks investing in the same bank, Black folks bringing all their millions and their billions together in a financial institution and doing those things, giving loans and being in the community to support the community, whether it's the richest or the poorest, but it's still us. Those are things that have to be instilled from a family perspective. Your father teaches you those things. Your mother teaches you those things. As long as we have broken homes, as long as we have homes where we are not growing up with our mothers and fathers in the house, I ain't talking about co-parenting and we get along sometimes, in the home raising our children, those principles that we are talking about can't be instilled and passed down generationally so that they can bring about those improvements and changes that we want.
Big facts. That's the microcosm right there.
Williams making a face.
No, I appreciate that he said that, because that is true. That like it's all based off of what you raise your family to. But I think it's also a double standard. Even to like point at AJ and also Brian was said is that like earlier when it come to talking about like being responsible for like putting out information, I guess, or doing activism for your platform. It also, people also have the right choice to do what they want to do with their money and also their career. There's some people who just don't want to open up Black banks and maybe just be like LeBron James and open up a school for kids in Ohio. So I guess my short expression I could definitely say is that definitely it would be nice to be able to have those opportunities to be able to open those places. But I think those opportunities should be for those people who are interested in doing them. Get Jacob or Hassani that's from Tennessee who wants to open up an actual Black bank, not try to worry about Jay-Z or J. Cole trying to open up a bank. They want to be rappers. They want to be entrepreneurs in different aspects. I don't think that we should be relying on those people. I do agree that it will be nice that that those people invest back into their community because they have all this wealth. But if that's not their passion, then that's not their passion, and we don't have no choice. We shouldn't hold those people responsible. But what we can do is hold the responsibility to those same communities, because we can't sit there and argue that like we should all be able to have our own voice. But then I can have my own voice as much as I want behind this microphone. But if I don't have a few group of people that's actually supporting me behind me, I'm not going to have a rally cry. If I don't have a rally cry, I'm not going to have other people be able to hear what I'm saying or what other people are saying. So we need to actually have some type of community base and some type of social change in our community, and then also express it outwardly as well, if that makes sense. So we need to all kind of get on the same page. I need to also be able to understand AJ's lifestyle and understand what it is entailed to be a Black female. Fuck, I was going to do this whole thing without a female. So to be able to actually get a female perspective on this helps me be able to, I guess, consolidate my ideas a little bit more. The same thing with you, Brian, is that I always joke about you being a contemporary liberal. And so like I would say that like I need to be able to understand that like the importance of social community and within how we need to be able to open up our own, like, for example, businesses and stuff like that. I need to understand that, but also I'm not dumb enough to not know that like we're not getting the leasing, we're not getting the loans, we're not in a place where our schools are just as good. Ty is from Florida, right there in Tallahassee has the worst school system, one of the worst school systems in fucking the U.S. It's not that I don't disagree with you guys, and it's not that I disagree with anything you say, but I think that again, it still kind of boils down that we're asking a person to basically put their hands up while they're laying flat down on the ground. It's kind of unfucking fair, and it's kind of backwards. I didn't realize that until just now. I guess if that makes sense, what I'm saying.
It doesn't, from my perspective. If you're trying to say that.
We're asking, that's why I say it feels like it's asking the impossible, because of the fact that we don't have a clear idea of what we want. I realize that I'm also asking a lot of stuff that just is not in sync and in line with you.
I guess for me, I need to for you to break down the point again, because I didn't get none of that.
Yeah, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong. If what you're asking for is a lot of different things, I don't think it's anything wrong with that. What I do think is that, and this is I think our problem as a community, a race, or people, whatever. We have this thing to where we won't focus on the big thing, the right now thing, and say let's attack that, and then we'll get to the smaller things. It's like if I punch you in the eye, stab you in your arm, and shoot you in your stomach, are you going to run into the emergency room saying, my eye? No. Does it hurt? Yes. Are you wounded with the knife wound? Absolutely. The most important thing is the gunshot wound to the stomach. That's what I need addressed first, Doc. And that's it. Now, once you get this under control, then we can take care of the arm, because that's where my stab wound is. And finally, you can give me an ice pack for my eye because it's swollen. But the gunshot wound to the stomach is my most important issue right now.
So that's basically, Black people are the gunshot wound to the stomach. I'm
saying if you look at Black people, you look at our plight and our issue and our problems, what is that gunshot wound?
Yeah.
What is that gunshot wound to? It should be the discussion. Not saying that what I'm saying is right and I got all the answers. I'm just saying the discussion should be, what's the gunshot wound?
Yeah. But that's you're kind of saying it in a more exquisite and gory way. But that's what I'm saying, is that like
I got it though.
We're picking at different things to sit there and say that this is all one issue. And it's not. We're not basically saying that fuck it, we need to get rights in this specific way. We need to like narrow down. We're not organizing our thoughts. We're not putting it all together to make sense, I guess. So that's why I say I realize that the more and more that we talk, the more that we kind of like push along, that we are asking one simple thing, is that like or saying that, hey, we need to have rights and we need to be able to have the abilities for different opportunities. But we all kind of talking about different different ways of dealing with those opportunities.
And that's exactly what that right there is the difference in our conversation. What you just
I don't
said.
like the fact that you agreed with me just now.
No, that's the difference in our conversation, because you're saying that we need rights. I'm saying we have rights. I'm saying that the rights that we have, we're not even taking advantage of those, but we saying we want this. We want that. We need you to do this. We need y'all to give us this and show us that and be nice to us and let us have it. But what we could actually act on, I ain't even worried about that. This is what I want to talk about, though. That's what we're doing. We're not taking what we could use for our own self and our own advantages. Like I said before, you talked about banking. Banking and finance is huge in any community that has power. You look at the Chinese.
That's kind of hard to have sit there and scream that you have rights when a man is leaning on your neck, and while you're saying you can't breathe.
You're right.
I'm just saying that
you're right.
So we have. You're right. We do have those rights, but are they going to be equating to our counterparts? And that's the thing. And it's not. But at the same token, we don't know what to do. I feel like, honestly, going back into what you're saying about the gunshot wound, what is one of the things that your body does when you get that gunshot wound or you get some heavy trauma? You either go into shock or you panic and you either start to bleed out more or you start to trauma. I guess you hemorrhage more. And that's what we're doing. We're hemorrhaging and we're experiencing so much trauma that we just don't know what to do. We don't know whether to fight or flight, or we don't know whether to stay calm or just talk about it or just say owie. But I think that's what it is.
When you talk about like George Floyd, there are 44 million black folks, estimate, running roundabout, in this country. That is not the plight of 44 million people. Is it tragic? Absolutely. What happened to him, should it have happened? Hell no.
Yeah.
It is one of the worst things that has ever happened, and it will forever be in our history. Just like Emmett Till. Emmett Till should not have ever happened.
Yeah.
But it has never been forgotten. Is that the plight of 44 million people? No. So you can't.
Not that you have seen.
Or said of.
You can't. Hold on. You can't make one thing that you know or that you may even suspect. If you can't show me, like they just said, I think the statistic is like 1,000 people have been killed by the police in the past year that were unarmed or something like that across the country.
With that, though.
Listen, I'm just giving you an example. Out of 323 million, we're talking about 1,000 people. However, it is now the main guiding force in our media today, social and mainstream alike. What I'm saying is that those 1,000 deaths that have occurred, you compare that statistically to 323 million people. It is important, but the main focus of society? No. There are other things going on in the world that our country has to deal with. Not to say that it's not important, but there are other things that are going on that have to be dealt with. It doesn't mean that we stop the world and say, we got to look at this and see what happened to this because this shouldn't have happened. Okay. But we have to actually say, yes, this is important. Yes, we can address it, but it doesn't mean that it governs how we interact and how we live amongst each other every day, because there's still 323 million of us in this country alone.
You mean like that pandemic we're going through right now? Like,
I'm gonna switch up a little bit different, okay?
Okay.
To go to the context of that. So I get how you were trying to say about like 1,000 people and stuff like that, but it's kind of like what you one of the main memes and the comments that's kind of surfaced about this specific group that we talked about multiple times, which is Black Lives Matter. We're not saying that all lives don't matter. We're saying that this specific group is being attacked and being hurt in this specific way. We have to worry about that. Same analogy that they use for Black Lives Matter is the same way as the burning house. All houses do matter. But which one are you going to send the firefighters to? You're not going to send them to the clean house. You're not going to send them to the fucking hospital. You're going to send them to the house that's on fire. And essentially, when you say that we're we're not going through this plight the same way, we still need to care about this specific group. You realize that, right? That even if there was 1,000 people, it's consistently happened to this specific group. So we need to focus on it. The same way as we, like AJ was kind of so eloquent trying to put it together, is that we went through COVID-19. We need to kind of start fucking putting our hands together to stop this shit from killing fucking everybody. It's not just in Wuhan, Brian. It's all the way in the US as well. So,
you just answered your own. You just helped me make my point. Look, if you get 400,000 people that have died from COVID,
I know, but
versus how many billion people that are in the world, why would you be concerned about that 400? I'm sorry. It's the same thing, man. What I'm saying is, it is. Listen, just like you talking about Black Lives Matter.
For example, if we wanted to use that for an example, like I said about the COVID-19 thing. So if we came out with a vaccine for this said COVID-19, and I'm not trying to go off topic, promise you it's going to come
You're not
back.
off topic, actually. You're right in what you're saying.
So
you are actually on.
Right? If we were worried about that specific thing, right? We still, like Ty Hicks said earlier, is that like when you walk out the side of the door, you're still Black. You still are not going to get the same representation. You're still not going to get the same abilities as your counterparts. So you still kind of need to help those specific areas. So I get it that I apologize. I'm trying to like not be flustered. I really am.
Well, okay, so wait. How come? Well, let me ask you this: how come you just can't look? How come you just can't look at the numbers and based on the numbers acknowledge the fact? That's all. That's because that's the only thing I'm asking. Just like how you talked about.
That's another point, though. You said that.
Why can't you acknowledge the fact?
But yet, still, police we're sitting there demanding that we have the right to know these numbers as well. That is a Bureau of Justice Statistics. That is a government official organization that sat there and said all law enforcement organizations has to report these deaths, but they don't report those.
Okay, so now what do you do? So what do you do then?
You still. That's the point. That's what I'm saying, that we all are asking to do so many different things.
Because here's why I don't want us to get to that point. Because when you get to that point, you get into your feelings. That's the problem. When you get into your feelings, most of the time, when you follow your first mind and you follow your feelings, it's usually the wrong thing to do. If you look at the statistical data and look at the facts, that will lead you to a logical answer and approach to the very problem you're trying to solve. When you try to make it a big thing because it's a big thing to you personally, acknowledge that, but don't use that as your governing force. You talk about George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, one man who died and he was tragically killed. Do you realize that in that very following, what was that, a week ago, there were 80 people shot in Chicago, my hometown. Black Lives Matter didn't say shit about that. So should I say Black Lives Matter only care about George Floyd, but Black Lives Matter don't care about the people in Chicago? I could argue that. But the point of what we're trying to discuss is more so police reform as opposed to this, how many people are dying. The people that are dying are the people that are dying, and they are important. But I can't let one man like George Floyd be the blanket excuse or response to like get rid of the police department. You have people saying, I don't want the police in my neighborhood because of how one man died. And now you're literally doing what has been done to us. We're being racist against all police because they're the police. We don't need them because of 4 assholes who killed a man. That's emotion. That's feeling. Because the fact of the matter is, take the police out of your neighborhood. And then who do you call when there is a domestic? A social worker?
That's what okay. We can definitely go on that, and we definitely took up a lot more time.
We took a lot of time.
Yeah. So So I appreciate you guys for definitely being there. So what is your final thoughts like about everything? Like, I guess Ty, we're going to start with you.
Oh, man.
Final thoughts.
He's like, I'm trying to gather them.
I know, right? You know, I just love to listen. I'm the young buck of the show. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just sitting here listening. You know what I'm saying? Absorbing, taking in, and everything.
Yeah.
Honestly, it starts with us first. It starts with us really understanding our fears, traumas, trials and tribulations, and then moving forward. And I think B had the best analogy when it came to the gory, shots.
It makes sense. Yeah,
it did. It made perfect sense because we have to really understand what is the issue, what is the true issue, and then honestly, as a community, as a society of Black people, we have to come to a lot of compromise. That's going to take a lot of uncomfortable conversations. That's going to take a lot of conversations, period. That's going to take a lot of us really digging deep into not only everybody else's business, but also turning the mirror on ourselves and saying, okay, we have to also get ourselves together so that we can sit here and now bring ourselves together so that we can get our community together. That's it.
Gotcha. AJ?
My final thoughts, I always advocate for people who are going to speak out and wondering, what kind of leader are you? Because people are looking for leaders. Not everybody is a leader, and not everybody should be a leader. So it's, what kind of information are you sharing with your platform? What are you saying to people? What kind of response do you want, as, the leader of your platform and what you're saying? What is your motive? What is your movement? Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own, individualism. Everybody has it. But for something on a large scale, because we all are Black, it does come down to a point, where we need to get it in order of what we need to focus on and why these things are happening. And that's why we have that conversation about reform, police reform, and knowing what's going on within these police forces as to why these persistent shootings are happening like this. And then it also, goes into what does our education look like? Why are, our kids left behind and they're getting, they're following bad examples and getting themselves in trouble. There's so many things to look at, but we do have to pay attention to the biggest problem first, which is right now, which is, this platform of that unfortunate, murder that happened, which traumatized everyone because they saw it. Anything you see, you react to, like if you don't, then something's wrong. Something else is deeper rooted and wrong in you.
Definitely.
And I think also, to put it like, I guess, I would say like with everyone sitting still in this quarantine, as to why they're highlighting the George Floyd murder the most is because they can't get away from it. There's murders happening all the time. We know that. One just happened literally yesterday in Atlanta. This happens all the time.
Every day.
So it's like, okay, we pick one and this is what's happening and this is all the other thing that's happening, to where you need to look into the data, look at the updates of the shootings that's happening, because we can't keep track. It happens so much.
Yeah.
That it's like you just need to have a ticker right on your computer that's like bling, blink, blink, blink every single minute, hour. You would drive yourself insane. And if with being in quarantine, you can't get away from it. There's nothing for you to run away to go do, so you can forget about it. the reason why it's so big now is because people, they had nothing to really distract themselves from it. And it traumatized them, it moved them. And it's like, oh shoot, for real? Okay. Okay. This is really going on. Okay. Let's get in, let's you know, look into this. What's going on here? Why are they saying this? Why has this movement been going on and not so big? But now it's like so big now because this incident happened and it traumatized people to go do something.
Right.
It's like, but you know, even though majority of those people, they're saying this hashtag because it's there, you know, they still need to do that work as to what even led up to this happening anyway. And that's why, you know, I say in your platforms, if you know, you have the ability to say whatever you want on your platforms, but it's like, it's also individually, like how it affects us and what message we want to put out there and how we lead into a better future.
Yes. Brian?
I would say this. The problems that we have and the answers that we seek all starts, the solution to the problem begins with fathers being back in the homes and family being the utmost important in our community. There's a very wise man who came up with a movie called A Fatherless America. That movie has the statistical data and it shows the facts as to why things are the way they are for us and how we can correct them. If we are going to talk about solutions, fixing this, correcting that, addressing this, and curtailing that, whatever it is, when it comes to us, it starts with us looking in the mirror and saying, what's wrong with us? We now see it. Let's address that. Then we can begin to address the other outliers, the other issues, the more microcosms that we have in our communities and those issues. We have to address the macro issue first, which is fathers and families being reestablished in our homes and in our communities. That's where everything else stems from. You can look at other groups and other races and see that that is the number one difference between us and them. It's not necessarily the color of our skin. It's not necessarily the preference of who we want to sleep with or who we want to live and share our lives with. It starts with us wanting the best things for us. It starts with family.
Well, come on, preacher. Come on, preacher, man. Come on, Bishop.
Now we all may bow our heads for a moment of prayer.
Yes,
And, go ahead.
That's where I'm cut out. No.
Stop trying to get my money out of my pocket, damn it.
Bring the collection.
Always communion. Pass the hat around.
Go ahead. Hit that cash out. Hit that donate button. You can do that. Hit that PayPal.
Hit the PayPal. Hit the
Show me your political power.
Let me see what you got. Oh my Lord.
So can't lead off after that. I mean, that was very well put together. I would say we all fucking educated as people, and I think that we all are not the demographic or the statistic or stereotype that people put us as. So the design of this, it wasn't not the design for me to be able to go on a tangent every now and again with Brian as well, but it was designed for me to be able to sit down and listen. I hope I did my best for them, and I definitely will work well on articulating my perspectives and my views a little bit better instead of getting flustered, I guess you would say. But with that, I think that we are all well put together to be able to spread some light, I guess you would say, on who we are. And I want us to be able to actually take the challenge of being able to listen to other people and their perspectives and be able to grow ourselves and what we feel and how we can change and we can all make history ourselves with other people. I'm not going to go into a deep, final, thought-provoking thing. I let that be for Brian just to do just now. But what I could definitely say is that, like, I challenge you guys to be able to actually take time to listen to other people as well, but also be able to actually articulate your voice and be able to actually let's put our heads together to be able to actually find out how we can actually make social change, not only within ourselves, but also our community itself. Make sense?
All righty.
All right.
Awesome. This was amazing. So, Brian, of course, we all know where we can find you. We're fucking on your page. So,
Make sure y'all go share this video real quick.
See how he set himself up for fame?
He did it. He did it. We went to home turf for him.
He got the whole thing right there. Relationship rehab.
Yeah, got a whole home turf for him as well. So, AJ, where can we find you? What can we do to support you, young lady?
Well, like you said, if you need web or graphic design, anything media, whatever, my website is therebellious.com.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you just want to follow anything I post when I go off on a rant, you can just go on Facebook and find me under Adrienne Johnson.
Gotcha.
Love the rant.
Gotcha. Todd?
Well, guys, you can find me. I have multiple social media platforms because I have multiple podcasts and everything. So if you want to follow them, you can follow my podcast at TOB_podcast. That's the Opinionated Brother podcast. If you would like to follow the Devontae's World podcast, you can do that. That's the THEDW podcast on Instagram. You can listen to me on my website at www.tyronzahicks.com. All my podcasts are streaming everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, everywhere. So, yeah.
Did you say the opinionated black guy?
The opinionated brother. Yeah. I
just wanted to make sure so I can type it in the chat right. That's all. I wanted to make sure I could type it in the chat right.
Black guy from brother.
And see, here's the thing. Brother is spelled BRUHTHA.
Okay, well, here, do this. Can you both send me your website and send me your social media stuff, and I'll put it actually in the description box on this show, so people can look in the description box, and then everything will be right. I'll have the correct links and everything. So email me that, and then I'll put it in the description box.
I got you.
Perfect.
Awesome. And of course, y'all can find me at the Making History Making podcast. I'll send that to Brian Redman as well. And also join up on our Facebook page. And I designed it to be a Facebook group so we can have weird little conversations like this as well. Please make sure you like and subscribe fucking Brian Redman's page, man.
Yes, indeed.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew he was doing in design. With that being said, let's give him a few more likes and subscribes. I guess the best we can possibly. But and I'm gonna put my one little caveat, and I'm gonna say support Black businesses. So support Brian Redman.
Duly noted.
Duly noted.
Y'all stay dope. I appreciate you folks for being able to actually have this conversation with me.
Awesome.
No problem, brother. Thank you for having me, man.
Well, now that I've yielded my platform to you, now you can yield it back to me. And I would just wrap it up and say, I just want to thank all of you guys who tuned in, who decided to watch us. I appreciate it. Please feel free to like and subscribe, leave comments on the show. Y'all know I will respond to the comments. Let us know what you thought about the show. As always, I'm always open for the conversation and having the discussion. So please feel free to do that. To you guys, I appreciate you guys just taking time out of your schedule to have a conversation and a discussion with us, whether we agree, disagree, whatever the case may be. As long as we're respectful and we having a conversation, I'm all for just that. So thank you guys so much for allowing yourselves to be a part of my show, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Jason, for always reaching out and always staying in contact with me to do what it is we do. I appreciate you guys. And everybody, please make sure that you tune in. I'm gonna be back in about another hour and a half, maybe. I just looked at my wrist and I got no watch. I'm gonna do a show about the brother who got shot in Atlanta last night. So we're gonna talk about that. Y'all may like it, y'all may not, but I'm still gonna talk about it. So be sure to stay in tune for that.
Not like it.
Huh? You said, what did she say? I didn't hear you.
Why do I feel not like it?
Yeah, it's tune in and you'll see.
It's because Brian got them opinions that people don't like to hear.
Yes, sir. Tune in.
I'm just being real. I'm just being real. That's him.
Yes, indeed. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all. Y'all have a good one.
Man.
Be easy. Till next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.